Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Adam Dorsay, a psychologist in Silicon Valley and the host of SuperPsyched, a podcast dedicated to supercharging your life. Each episode contains fun, high-quality interviews with experts looking at psychology from all angles. SuperPsyched is your tool to get more of what you want in your life and less of what you don't. We've all seen the Garfield mug or t-shirt, you know the one, that says, "I hate Mondays." While the meme may be a bit kitschy at this point, many of us continue to dread the lead-off day of the week. But after reading an outstanding book by Jodi Wellman, the guest on this interview, I was reminded of a fact. We only have so many Mondays left in our lives. While there are no guarantees of how many, she predicts that she has about 4,000 Mondays left in her life. While that could be a bummer, she harnesses findings from various areas, including ancient Rome, all the way to state-of-the-art positive psychology research to help us recognize life's preciousness and to live more fully. Jodi has a master's degree in applied positive psychology from the University of Pennsylvania, and she gives keynotes worldwide on helping people live with as few regrets as possible. Her book, You Only Die Once: How to Make It to the End with No Regrets, has been endorsed by a spectacular number of thought leaders, including Yale professor Dr. Laurie Santos, who hosts the Happiness Lab podcast and called the book The Existential Wake-Up We All Need. So listen in as Jodi and I talk about living a regret-free life. Jodi Wellman, a hearty welcome to SuperPsyched.
Oh, a hearty thank you for having me here. Excited.
I cannot even begin to describe the joy, the perpetual joy of listening to your book, You Only Die Once. Now, it has one of the most evocative titles, and it's an irrefutable truth. Sorry, James Bond, you got it wrong. You don't die twice. I mean, maybe you might come back and be revived. Okay, that's fine. But the bottom line is, for the big sleep, for the long one, you only die once. And you basically are filling the pages with the entire idea that I have for SuperPsyched in general. So I have a sister from another mister here. But I want to ensure that people are alive while they're living. And you basically created an entire book based on that premise. So love your work, endorse it. It's not a should read. This is a must read.
Required reading.
This is required reading. I would say Elements of Style by Strunk and White, required reading. I read it on a Japanese subway. Great book. Changed my writing. You Only Die Once, definitely required reading. So let's get into it offline. You and I had a nice little green room chat. And one of the ways that I have described having written my own book was I felt like a dog was biting my ass. I had no choice but to write this book. And it sounds like it was a similar process for you. Before we even get into it, why did you write it? And what was like the driving force behind it?
Yes, the dog biting your ass, that is very appropriate. When you were describing that, I was thinking about even this bizarro feeling of being possessed by some sort of force about, I don't even know, not that I was speaking in tongues or writing in tongues, but this whole idea of memento mori, remembering we must die, has been this, let's just call it a bit of a bizarro passion project that I've had dormant all my life. And I didn't really know how to talk too much about it because I didn't want to freak everybody out. I don't want to offend everybody. So once I researched it and then I found a way to make this something that I could talk about and hopefully motivate people with, it was like there's no turning back. I had to make my thesis from grad school. I had to turn that into a book, which allowed me to use way more F words than I could ever put in my thesis. So that was good. And I think I counted there are 38 in the book. I'm pretty proud.
And I loved all 38 of them.
Thanks.
One of the things that I learned early on before I chose brilliantly, if I dare say so myself, my wife, the one perfect thing I've done in my life, is that it's so crucial that we marry a happy person. What if I was to say to you, hey, listen, the person you're marrying will have a perpetual cold and you will perpetually catch it each time. You'll never get over it. We wouldn't do that, but we know that happiness, and you talk about it quite extensively, about how moods, Debbie Downerism, is a contagion.
Yes.
And of course, you're not suggesting toxic positivity and to be happy when you're supposed to be sad.
Yeah.
You're saying lean into the real emotion.
Yeah.
And when possible, try to choose fun, try to choose zany, try to choose happy, try to bring some zest into this short life that we have, because it's always later than we think.
The word zest. So yes, specifically, the more research I do, the more people I talk with, the more I float this out there, and I get people kind of nodding back at me like, oh God, that's the quadrant. Because I look at life and needs, widening it with vitality and deepening it with meaning. More adults, especially, all of us busy types, we are clamoring for just a little more of the fun out there, more of that joie de vivre, more of that feeling of, am I leading a lackluster life? I think that's sort of a deep fear that many of us have, is that am I doing it right? I mean, we could evaluate that, but am I giving it a go, enough of a go, so that maybe when I got to the end, I would feel like I could use words like I killed it, or I'm proud of how I showed up and I actually got more than just got the basic participation ribbon. So that idea about adding in zest and joy and vitality, it's just a huge dimension that I think so many of us are leaving on the table for various reasons. And I think that's where so much it's right there for us to grab it. Because life's short. Why wouldn't we want the rest of our remaining Mondays to be just a little bit more freaking fun?
And why wouldn't we want to wallpaper our wall with the 4 quadrants of widening with vitality and deepening with meaning? I would want to see that every day, front and center on my wall, practically.
I'll paint a mural in your place if you'd like.
Yeah, so totally. So it's not just memento mori, but it's memento vivi, I guess, for life. I don't know. But that will teach us to remind ourselves, oh yeah, I could respond to all these emails and I could also live. I'm not suggesting not responding to emails, but too much time is spent on that little trivial stuff. I'm going to go back to something else, though. You and I are both fans of Irvin Yalom, the great psychiatrist from Stanford, the existentialist. And he actually described every book that he wrote as having bitten him in the ass. He had no choice but to write it. And you can tell that you're right, that your book is fueled by joy and fueled by enthusiasm, that contagious enthusiasm that cannot be faked. We know it when it's fake. Yours is the real deal. So you talk about the fact it's very evocative. One of the concepts is we only have so many Mondays left. So many people are like the Garfield. Oh, it's another Monday. Or, oh gosh, it's not just Mondays, but, Wednesday, it's hump day. And the thing that just makes me nuts, same old, or another day, another dollar. Let's talk about these ideas that we hear. These are contagions in the air. There are so many of them. It's too many asteroids to name, but in this field. But let's talk about some of the things that may block us from actually enjoying the few Mondays that we actually have left.
Another one is like working for the weekend. This idea that we are doing this thing where we're consciously talking about slogging it through the week in order to then live a slightly better version on a weekend, or on those little tiny moments where we take a vacation. Oh, it's when I go to the beach once a year that I come alive. Well, what about the rest of your freaking life? And so this to me is a good example of how we're like trying to endure Monday or get over the hump of Wednesday or whatnot. It's that we're taking our lives for granted. We're putting them in this category of our lives are happening to us, or they're passing us by, or we're just trying to go through the motions. These are all phrases that I take very seriously and go, oh, we don't consciously want that. And I recognize that sometimes we're in these busy periods with life and love and parents and kids and all the things that go on. There'll never be a shortage of things. But I think we just need to press the pause button for a second and say, how are you doing? Are you living wide enough with vitality? Are you living deep enough with meaning? And my best test for this is if you did find yourself on death's door tonight, sorry about your luck, but the old deathbed exercise, would there be things that you'd kick yourself for that you always said, oh, I've always wanted to do this, but I never got around to doing it? If you're human, the answer is yes. It's just a matter of how long that list is. and how much those things might give you those pangs of regret if you were there taking your last breath. And those are the opportunities to say, why am I leaving life on the table? And it doesn't mean that you have to quit your job and move to some far-flung location that sounds great or looks good on social media. I'm not talking about that. But sometimes it's the little things, it's the little choices that we know will make us feel a little more alive. And let's start doing that now. Let's stop delaying our lives for a later that, quite frankly, may not even show up.
So what you're speaking to is so many things. First of all, the fact that we're even here to begin with is a redonkulous miracle. Thank you, ancestors, for copulating, surviving. The likelihood of that even happening, let alone the two of you coming together, infinitesimally small.
Yeah, we get to be here. Yeah.
We get to be here. I actually looked up the equation. It's not a scholarly one, but the most scholarly one I could find was the likelihood of any of us actually existing is 1 in 10 to the 7.29 millionth power. So that basically means 7.29 million zeros. Yeah. To win the lottery, it's maybe 9 zeros. But we're talking about 7.29 million zeros. And here you and I are talking miraculously.
Right. Like we already won the lottery.
We already won the lottery. And one of the things you're talking about, the deathbed, very important. One of the things we know through deathbed studies is people tend to regret at least 2 things. They regret not having tried the things that they tried, and we will hopefully have a shorter list of those things. But the other one is love left on the table. Those are the 2 big ones. And no one has ever said on their deathbed, please bring me my awards that I won. They say, bring me the people who matter. So you have really helped kind of separate the wheat from the chaff and say, listen, folks, focus here. What are some places that people may focus but shouldn't? And maybe where could they take their intention instead?
You hit the nail on the head a second ago about thinking about like the accolades. And I know, and let's not deny, some of us are very motivated by achievement and by success. And so like rock on, more power to us. If that's what floats your boat. I think that there's this notion like intrinsic, extrinsic goals and motivations, the stuff that when we stop and think about our mortality in a very conscious way, I love the studies that show that it does help us to get more in touch with those intrinsic values that are actually motivators. Like, is it about connection or is it about a sense of pure joy or contentment? It's not about, I want to earn more money and get a better car and wear better shoes and do you like my bag? So I think sometimes the idea of living life, believe me, like I set myself up sometimes for confusion here. So I call that quadrant when we look at living wider and deeper. I say we're all striving to live these astonishingly alive lives. Like the word astonishing is a little astonishing, right? That implies something that is grandiose, but it's all relative. So I think one of the misnomers we have in this whole, like, how do I live my life, my best life? How do I not squander my time? Because I love the idea of living a squander-free life. I think that we put pressure on ourselves right from the get-go that to live an astonishingly alive life, it has to be glitzy and look a certain way and feel a certain way and impress certain people. And that's outward facing. I think most of us know, again, this is through research about the deathbed studies or hospice care or about any kind of a sort of formal lab situation where we induce what's called mortality salience, which is just thinking about death, just a fancy way of saying it. It is that activation of, wait a minute, what are my actual priorities? And it's something that may be even smaller. It is just that, are you in tune with the things that make you feel a little alive, that bring you happiness and joy, that give you that sense of aliveness and a feeling of vitality and or the feeling of having a connection to meaning? And we overestimate how big it needs to be. And often it is just, sometimes it's the small choices, about making a phone call to a friend rather than just scrolling through and answering your emails, for example. That's just one silly example. Or making a decision to sit outside and have your cup of coffee outside, regardless of the weather, and just look around and feel the air, whether it's sleet or whether it's hot or whatnot on your face, rather than going through the motions inside, right? It's just small choices that can make you feel like you experienced part of your day versus, again, going through those motions.
It's interesting that you say this. I'm remembering one of the few middle school biology experiments that I really liked. And one of them was sit outside, close your eyes, and detect everything you hear. Write it down. And the thing that was so amazing is Ferris Bueller really got it right. I mean, life goes pretty fast and you might miss it if you're not paying attention. And I didn't know that those sounds even existed.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of just sitting outside with a cup of coffee and a sleep and enjoying the intrinsic experience of just the joy of doing that.
I'm so glad you're underscoring this, because I have this exercise I'll do in a workshop or whatnot where I'll get people to write out a list of 30 things that make you happy.
Mhm.
And the caveat is that they have to be, you can't just put them all as, it's only when I'm yachting in the Mediterranean. That's like what qualifies for me.
That's a really hard target to hit.
Right. I mean, for most of us, the sweet, simple things, and I often call them the cheap and cheerful things, it never ceases to astound me. And I just love this about us because it means that I think access to aliveness and happiness is more accessible than we think. It is often just those really simple things. It's that someone will just say, the thing that gives me calm or pleasure in my day is when I do stop and brush the dog for 5 minutes in between meetings. Or if I am able to stop and just smell my kid's head. Or for other people, nature comes up a lot for people. I'm an indoor cat, so I don't understand you people, but I understand. Research is clear that nature is important for most people, that being outside, doing a quick walk or being in any way connected outside or trying a new recipe, just something that is a choice that you can make in your life that is not expensive and it's not time consuming necessarily. These are things that are available to us. And those are the things that can flick a switch between feeling like it's just another Wednesday night, or it's that, hey, we're going to have breakfast for dinner, or we're going to have banana splits for dinner, and we're going to watch reruns of our favorite show when we were kids. Just something that breaks up the monotony of life, because that's precisely what can happen, right? We just kind of end up glazing over and we get into routines that unfortunately dull the edges. And so we do need to make a little effort sometime to shake things up. But back to the point, don't overestimate that it needs to be something big and fancy and expensive. I mean, let's do those things too, if we can afford them, the time and the money. But also it's the sweet, small stuff, going and tending to the garden, going and reading a really fabulous book on your lunch break.
When I was a boy, one of the bedtime stories was Amelia Bedelia, and she did everything kind of weird, turned everything upside down. And you talk quite a bit in your book about routine disruption. You say it in various ways. And one of the things that I remember doing just once was having like a Frank Sinatra's birthday celebration just because it was fun. But I see in your book, it's peppered with tons of like National Burrito Day. You get really into it and you find a way to just bring levity and actual connection and meaning in to these seemingly ordinary days.
Even your point about ordinary, because back to, again, I feel this very strong need to make this stuff sound accessible to us. This idea of living like we mean it. It is that there can be such beauty and such pleasure found in the mundane of our lives, right? Whether it's because you're tuning in to, like you said, the senses around you and you had no idea that it smelled like this in the park, or wow, I've never really stopped and tasted the, like after the 19th chip, you're not tasting the chips anymore.
No, for sure not.
Really stopping and savoring the flavor, literally and figuratively. These are things that are available to us that I think back to taking for granted. And in our lives, they're just moving fast. Sometimes I do think it's that as serious adults with bills to pay, we just need sometimes the silly little things to jolt us. To say, for example, if it is National Something on a Stick Day, let's do this as a family, or let's have this tonight, or let's go and make sure that we are going to go and join this new glass blowing class I saw in town tonight because it'll just be a fun experience. We need all the help we can get to be reminded to live. I think it's Nietzsche may have said it, man is the only animal who needs to be reminded to live.
Oh my
and
gosh.
I need these reminders really daily. I mean, I do this selfishly for myself too. It's not just to motivate other people to live. I need to remind myself too, because we get into the rut. Well, back to Ellen Glasgow's quote, the only difference between a rut and a grave are the dimensions.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
so
yeah.
good. And I couldn't agree more. Once we get into that rut, it is kind of like dying while we're living. It's like, yeah, we're doing the things, but we're not savoring. And that I'm going to get into savoring in just a second, because I've experienced a form of, people are going to hear this and say, that's not death. And they're right. This is not death. This is a symbolic thing. Mm-hmm. And people might even say, but there's the sunny side to it. And there is. I set my son to brought him to college, which means that he will probably be coming home perhaps for the rest of his life, cumulatively 6 months to a year. It was the death of, not him, but the death of that form of parenthood, of having such proximal parenthood, to have him close physically. He's not always going to be close to my heart, but it was, in a way, a death. And I believe the antidote, based on all of positive psychology research, which is something that you've done a lot of, and so have I, and I'm like so into it, is the art of savoring. It seems like it's almost an insurance policy that you'll be alive while you're living. If you're able to savor a moment, you won't regret not having had that moment. You will have been there. There's a big difference between being there and being there.
Yes. I am all giddy now. My heartbeat's racing because I love this topic, because it's one of those things where it's like, these are I call it the low-hanging fruit in positive psychology. And it's more than low-hanging fruit. It's like, this is like the best strawberry you've ever had that is actually like already dropped onto the ground in front of you. It's available to us, and we lose the chance. Because savoring is this cool thing over, like, I like the temporal discussion. Like, temporal scarcity is the field I play in, which is reminding ourselves that time is limited because it makes us value it more. There's a temporal aspect to savoring where we can savor the past, we can savor the present and the future. And these are all tools available, right? Like, in a given moment, while you're waiting and you're all ticked off at the doctor's office, you're waiting and they're 12 minutes late, go back in your phone and look at all the fabulous memories of the time when you went, and then remember we ate those tacos. And then, that's savoring the past. And then there's the present. And that is ideally when you're actually eating the taco. But then savoring the future is one of the best things available, which to me is about living this intentional life, which is saying, what do you have to look forward to? And my recommendation is to have something in your calendar a week, a month, and a year in advance that's just always coming up. And again, I need to size this. It doesn't mean that you're going to be going to the Michelin-starred restaurant in your town that no one can afford. Again, do it if you can. It's about little things, the sweet, simple things. I'm looking forward to a happy hour with a friend of mine that we have planned on Monday. We love our little beverage and we just love laughing. And it's just going to be a very simple, sweet thing that I just look forward to. But many of us, how many times have you said it where you have good intentions? You want to do a thing, or, it would be neat to go and check out that free museum night in my town, or, it would be great. We should plan that road trip with our friends. But if you don't make it happen in the calendar, it doesn't happen.
Absolutely.
This is an example of getting conscious and saying, no, but really, what would you really like to do for the next month? What would make you feel alive and happy? Oh, okay. It looks like you want to try that new recipe, or you want to go and do that class, or you want to register for that pickleball lesson. Okay, let's do it. Let's put it in the calendar. Because that's the difference between a life well lived and a life where we're just sort of fantasizing about living. But then we get to the end and we realize that we didn't really show up. We just had some good ideas.
This concept hit me hard. I remember I was living not very far from the beach in a homestay situation. And we were going to go to the beach. This was in Spain, and it was always mañana. Mañana, we'll go. Mañana. And literally, it sounds like a cliche, but I swear to you, mañana never came. We never went to the beach. And it was a really important existential lesson for me, that if you want to do it, I forget the author of The Little Prince. Yes. You know that quote? I think it's something like, an idea without a plan is just a dream, or something like that. I'm saying it poorly. It's in my book. But, and the other thing that you're talking about is savoring. And one of the ways that we savor, and savoring the past is a great one. One thing I do is, on my phone, a picture of me picking up my wife in the kitchen. It was an ordinary night.
That was your perfect choice. Look at that.
Right? There we go. And every time I look at it, and I just put it on a few days ago, and every time I look at my phone, I just smile. It's, I'm smiling.
Yes. Positive intervention.
It's absolutely a positive intervention. And the idea of savoring the past, savoring the present. How many of us, when we go on our phone, when we're waiting at the doctor's office, do that form of savoring? Usually we just attend to tasks, which I absolutely do. I'm like, oh my gosh, I better do it now because I'll have to do it later if I don't do it now, blah, blah, blah. And there's some goodness to that. And I'm missing out on the really good stuff. So that's just a reminder from you to me when I'm sitting in the doctor's office, maybe look at old photos. When I have a moment, I'm on hold. I'm listening to ding 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 ding. that song. I'm sure you've heard that song.
You're really accurate. Was that you that recorded that?
What if instead of me washing the dishes, which is something I'm known to do or something like it, when I'm on hold, I'm always producing. What if I was to say, I'm going to listen to this beautiful, crappy music, excuse me, and look at photos?
Yeah. So immediately it's funny. I find myself prepared for defensiveness from other people, right? Because I find this a lot in a lot of the presentations I'll do. And it's not because there's a cynic in the group, but it's that it's an honest person saying, I have to answer my emails though, or like, but the dishes need washing or all the other things. And I would absolutely agree. And it's the old improv, like, yes, and. Because I think that we tend to get into this all or nothing thinking, well, if I'm living like the good life, it means I'm looking at my photos for 4 hours and I'm really reveling in it. But I'm like, well, then no one's going to get emails back from you. And that's not good either. It's that, well, what if while we're doing the thing we would normally be waiting and just doing emails or scrolling mindlessly through social media that may not fill you up? What if you just did both? What if it was 5 minutes of one and 4 minutes of the other? But I'm not trying to say that, well, you got to abandon all of your responsibilities and routines because now it's all about living the fun life. Well, what planet are you going to live on for long? That's not going to work either. So I think to de-stress us, it's let's just be okay with even just the smallest little doses and appreciate that they do stack up. Because we know through research about positive emotions that if you just flip yourself into a positive emotional state, which can happen like on a lunch break, I'll just take a quick second. My husband and I will try and have lunch together, which is another nice thing to try for watching blooper videos for SNL or Seinfeld or just whatever your show is you like. Just Google bloopers. And now all of a sudden you've got 6 minutes where you could actually be laughing rather than, again, doing something more monotonous. And that's 6 minutes that I'm going to argue, is it going to change your life? Actually, The answer is maybe. Is this going to change your mood for the next meeting you go into or for the next conversation you have? Or does it make the lunchtime I'm having with the husband even just a little bit fun and sillier? Yes. And these are the opportunities we have. And so I just think we leave it on the table sometimes and it's available. And I think number one is tuning in though, because we're using, I think, hopefully helpful, like silly, basic examples. But what about the things though that are actually on your list? Like I exchanged an email with a woman this morning who, God love her, she read the book and she was inspired. And she said, I've been saying for so long that I want to join a choir. And I finally did it because I realized I'm not getting any younger. And she laughed and said, everybody else in the choir is in their 50s and 60s. She's like, I'm in my young 30s, but I'm doing it anyways. And I'm loving it because she just wants to go freaking sing. And so these are the examples of things where now look at her life. So maybe she goes on, I don't know, like Thursday nights for choir practice, which I just think it's just so delicious to say. I'm going to choir practice. And she's singing her little heart out. And she's coming home on that Thursday night. And her life is different because she's going to have a little medley spring in her step that she would not normally have had if she was just at home doing the laundry. So I just love the idea that we have these ideas and hopes and dreams and goals, and some of them are more substantial than others. And I'm not here to judge them. It could be a hobby. It could be a community service thing you want to do. It could be an achievement like writing a book or running a marathon or learning how to woodwork, whatever it is that you're kind of curious about. Don't we deserve to indulge that curiosity and give life a try? That's the opportunity, I think.
Absolutely. I want to go back to that idea of watching something funny, a blooper video or something like it. Imagine we could go back in time and go onto the Love Boat and ask Isaac out of sight for a drink. Except in this case, the drink was our endogenous, our internal feel-good hormones. What if that drink was our oxytocin, our serotonin, our dopamine, and other feel-good hormones that will make us better? Because we also know that hurt people end up hurting people. And the opposite is also true. Kind people tend to really heal people. And we're certainly going to be in a kinder, gentler, friendlier place if we've watched something funny. So I would say that the blooper video is essentially a cocktail with no negative side effects, given straight to you from Isaac on the Love Boat, because I love that visual for some reason. But you're also talking about other things, one of which is that little things that we do may actually have measurable results in terms of our longevity. Like you talk about this lionization of not taking your vacation time and the deleterious components of doing that, including the shortening of our life. Can you talk about vacations and longevity and what do we know?
The research is so absolutely compelling. And I think it pulls on our heartstrings because most people statistically leave vacation days on the table. Right. In the US especially. People in Europe right now are like, you people are idiots. But right now it is, everybody in the Western hemisphere is, we're such suckers.
We are.
And we're doing it to ourselves, which is always the worst part. It's sort of like reevaluating your relationship with leisure. Leisure, I realize, it can evoke feelings for people, right? Whether it is, wait a minute, if you've been brought up to have a certain kind of work ethic, back to we can be compatible with doing really great achievement-oriented things and also live a life that feels very wide and deep and full when we're not in our working hours, just based on the belief, which is also backed in research, that it does make you more effective and productive and a better employee and all the things and a better boss and so on. And it does help you live longer. I hate having to justify that by indulging in making it sound indulgent in leisure and time off is the thing that it's in service of making you a better worker, you little worker, be you. However we need to play this.
Keep on working hard. You're a good sheep.
Right. So I think taking our vacation days is a good example where many of us, if I was to rankle a little bit, many of us, we're afraid to take it because of what it'll say about us at work. But even that aside, we actually haven't fathomed what would really be a great way to spend the time because we've lost the plot. And I do this all the time. My husband and I will plan our sort of vacation and we do it a year in advance just so that the days are blocked. And we don't always have the plan set, but we know, well, let's hold that for Austin, maybe ? But we know that long weekend is there. And I think that because many of us are just on the glazed over routine of working and going through the motions, it actually is a little bit uncomfortable to imagine, but what would I do with myself if I wasn't going to go to this beach vacation? Like, how would I spend time with myself? Because we've lost touch with what would be a really great day. Actually, I don't even know what makes me feel fulfilled anymore. And that's okay, because let's normalize this. We have officially lost control of this, but we can get it back. We can stop and do that inner work, which in my book's the pre-mortem. It's like looking at what lights you up, what makes you excited, what would be a delicious day for you that could be a staycation. Ooh, one day. Ooh, okay, fine. An afternoon off. You worker, you. Take an afternoon, but what would make it like, I'd love to go to the park, or I'd love to go through the forest preserve, and then I'd love to stop off at that burger joint on the way home. And then on the way home from that, it would be really great to go to the bookstore. And then it would be really great to come home and sit outside with a martini. And then that would be a fantastic afternoon. Fantastic. Done. Book it. But we're just not really tuned in necessarily to some of the things that might, again, give us a shot at having a more vitality-filled life. And it's all available. I get so excited because I hope the example even I just gave is one that is not necessarily, I don't know, if we were to do a budget for that day, the walk in the preserve, the burger, the martini. I mean, those are things that, like, we're not breaking the bank, are we?
We're not, but we are breaking false idols. The word iconoclast actually comes from that idea of breaking false idols. And one of the things that we are meant to do in this life is be iconoclastic. Actually look at the false idols and say, these are false idols. I'm breaking them. One of the great stories that relates to taking time off, this is not at the exclusion of putting your whole heart into work while you're at work. But one of the great stories comes from several centuries ago. A mother superior was eating partridge. It gives you a sense of the time, the epoch in which we're talking.
Delicacy.
She's eating this partridge with great gusto, and she is just clearly savoring it. She is making noises. She's having an incredible experience eating this delicious partridge. A younger nun says to her mother superior, shouldn't you be reserving that zest and zeal for our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ? And she said, listen, when I'm with our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, I give him everything I have. And when I'm with partridge, I give it everything I have. Boom, mic drop. Mother Superior for the win. That's the truth. When I'm here at work, I give it everything I have. And it's my goal to do the same when I'm off the clock. And I don't succeed regularly enough.
Love it. Back to our little litmus test of, okay, getting to the end. What we know about people who reach the end and who are interviewed, if there's still marbles floating around enough to answer. The idea of you can be proud of accomplishments. And I think that let's not underestimate that too. That's important for many people. And, so it's back to the and. What would there be, again, if you were to kick the bucket tonight, that you would think, I wished I had done a little more of this or a little less of that? We always have the answers to the test, and we just have to be asked the right question and be honest with ourselves that too, and say, oh, okay, I think I probably did put a little too much pressure on myself. I'm happy with these things I did. And I do wish for some people it could be smell the roses more. And maybe it's literally go to the frickin' botanical gardens, go book that. Maybe it is about, I wish that I had spent more time with my kids. Well, then that's okay. Let's not berate ourselves for the life we haven't lived yet, because it's all right out in front of us for maybe minutes or hours or years. And so all we have is just this choice moving forward. So I think it's this constant getting in touch with what I call pregrets. These are regrets in the making. So they haven't happened yet. These are regrets that you could still course correct if you wanted to. So you could keep living your life and working your schedule and still not spending time with your kids. Or you could do a thing where a friend of mine told me this summer, and I was just so charmed by her. She said, my kid is in his last year of, kindergarten. She said, I made a decision that every Friday this summer, I'm going to pick him up and we're going to go for lunch. And she's like, thank God this kid, all he likes is Subway. So they're just going to go to Subway. They're going to go and they're going to eat the little Subway, and she's going to have her little moment with her kid on the Friday and then bring him back to whatever the school thing is. And then she's going to go back to her day, and she's savoring that as it's just 34 minutes on a Friday by the time you drive there and come back. And that for her is a good example. And it's formative time for a kid where, let's be honest, we need so little in life sometimes to be happy. We think we need so much more, but sometimes it's this little tiny dose where that kid's going to remember maybe that summer where, remember we were always eating those subs and it was always so fun. And that's life. That's a small dose of joy. It's available to us.
One of my greatest memories is walking on a hot summer evening in Queens with my grandfather. He was wearing an old t-shirt. We walk down the street and we make it our way to Carvel, and we get a frozen custard and we walk back and we talk. And he is one of my all-time favorite people. And that's one of my all-time favorite memories. And just the other night, just on a side note, I was taking my son, he's 16, but I take my younger son to the basketball game. We're there early. We got time for dinner. I'm like, hey, we got time. Let's grab dinner. We're in a neighborhood we don't know. I see a Japanese restaurant. I'm a Japanophile. We're leaving the place. And I say to Brad, I said, so what do you rate that place from 1 to 10? And he said, I'd give it about a 5. And I said, yeah, that's pretty generous. And I think that's about right, maybe. And he said something else. And he said, but I got time with you, and that was a 10.
Oh.
And he and I do get a lot of time together. I will say that. It's not a cats in the cradle situation, let's just say. Not at all. But we have something really great. And I know that when he goes to college, just as it was so with my older son, I will have banked a lot of good stuff. And yet, it was really funny. This is going to sound so silly. You know the Bruno Mars song about I should have bought you flowers?
Yep.
Just before my older son, Avon, was going off to college, I discovered birrias tacos, which are one of the most delicious creations known to the human race. They are so good. And I only got to go out for birrias tacos with him once before he went off to college. And I started substituting the lyrics. I should have bought you more birrias tacos.
This is so good. Oh my goodness. You are highlighting something to me that I think is an extension on what I talk about. Because I talk about calculating how many Mondays individuals have left in order to recognize the scarcity and sanctity of time. Yay. What you've done, and this is thinking about how you're conscious that you've got X number of collective hours and months with your kids, right? You know that you've got this limited time. You're savoring it in this way. My dad right now is sick in Toronto. He's 87. As he says, he is playing with house money. He's over the limit of his average life expectancy. And I am so acutely aware. It's when you stop and you do again, at the risk of sounding morbid, but spoiler alert, it's all coming. So let's just embrace it. My dad could go at any moment, knock on melamine here, and going there now and seeing now that he's in this precarious position with his health has made me so much more careful with my time and relationship with him. And you can bet that I am now steering conversations to be that much more about tell me about a time when, which actually might be really challenging from a memory perspective, but some things break through. And it's more, I'm having more quality time because I know these moments are limited, just like with your kids. Or we could all do this if we all even stop and consider any opportunity we have with a friend could be the last time we see them.
100%.
Any opportunity we have with our spouse. And so at the risk then of taking like a real downer turn for a second, it's done with the intention of saying, so how do I want to make this next time spent with you count? It's literally about making time count. It could not be more literal than that. How do I make this time with you count? And not every single dinner is going to be the most special, and there won't always be flowers or birria tacos, although there should be. But just being a little more awake, like waking up to the fact that back to the slumber that we find ourselves in, myself included, I ain't no better than anyone else out there, where I just get into this thing of taking it for granted that my husband's going to be there and we're going to go for our super taco, which is the taco joint we found here in Palm Springs. But wait, what? I want to make sure, let's get the super taco visits in.
100%.
They might
100%. You have a skull over your left shoulder in our video, providing you a memento mori. Over my right shoulder is a box that contains the cremated remains of my most beloved cat, the one who jumped me into the cat game. I hated cats before I had him, fell in love with him. His name is Yoda. He's just one letter away from Yodo, you only die once. But he is my memento mori. When he died, it was a surprise. I didn't expect him to go when he went.
Yeah.
I always thought I'd have a little more time.
Oh.
And that's one of the blessings of pets. They can remind us of the fact that, time is very much limited.
Yes. Oh, that pets are those special creatures. I do think that they play a role in a way of not just brightening our lives in ways that no human ever could touch, but that we choose these relationships that we know are going to be even more finite. We will outlive all of these pets we choose to fall in love with. And I think it's actually a good exercise to embrace and accept the fact that things are temporary. And it does prepare us. There's this notion in psychology that they sometimes talk about, existential psychologists, like practicing death. And sometimes it's having these like little, even like these little short-term relationships, like even a bouquet of flowers. They will die and they will crumble on your dining room table. And that's a good metaphor for, kind of like me and my body. And starting to accept that and spend time paying attention to that. But little things like, unfortunately, the coming and goings of the dear pets in our lives they're profound, but also important training in a way.
Absolutely. And baked into Japanese society is the yearly appearance of cherry blossoms and how beautiful they are for such a short period of time. And then they fall. And that's really baked into Japanese culture and philosophy and awareness of the preciousness of life. And we all really can do that, whether if you don't have to necessarily go to the Ghats in India or Nepal to see cremations to be reminded that this is just part of life. We can just really look into the areas that have been too short. Not exactly a death, but my buddy Jed, great guy. Only one problem. He lives 3,000 miles away and he's got a family and he's busy. And I hadn't seen him for 9 years. And I realized, oh my gosh, over the summer when I saw him, if I continue at this clip, we'll see each other 5 more times before I die. And so that's not okay. So you're talking about pre-regrets. So important. So I am working on cultivating like a quarterly meeting through Zoom so we get more time because he's one of the greatest guys who's ever lived.
Adam, this is so important. You've identified something. This is the missing piece for many of us, right? Is that we just kind of go through and we all of a sudden then we lose people or we go and then I don't know, maybe there's a place afterwards where we do kick the dirt and say, damn it, I should have gone over and spent more time. But you're identifying he matters.
So much.
Therefore, we're going to make this now part of the rotation. And I think sometimes we fill our lives sometimes with filler that quite frankly, I mean, my life is full of a lot of Netflix filler, which I do enjoy, but it's also not necessarily soul filling. But I think about sometimes there are people that are in your life, the characters that I'm like, but wait a minute. I was just thinking the other day, I thought I have this friend, her name's Capella. And I'm like, I don't show Capella that she matters as much to me because I don't actually get to consciously spend time with her. I have to make some Capella time. And it just was a very like, wait a minute. If we evaluate your life, if you were to do a time study and analysis of how much what you do, does it reflect what you value? Does it reflect how much time you're spending on yourself or maybe your body, if you're exercising or moving or eating well, or with the people that you want to spend good time with, because you already brought up, I mean, clearly you're the connection master, understanding that we have people in our lives that matter to us. Like I think about my friend Monica. I haven't seen her in years. And how could that be? Oh, I know how it is. We're both busy, like you just said with your friend.
There we go.
What do we want to do about that? Who makes the cut?
James Joyce wrote that Mr. Duffy lived a short distance from his body. And I would say that based on what you're saying, we live a short distance from our values. And you and I both know that when there's a values gap, we need to find a way to shrink that gap and ideally make them more integrated. And it's very easy to say and hard to do. So that's just something that is going to be an ongoing work in process. We'll never get it perfectly. But as long as we are aiming there, we're going to do better than we would if we weren't intentional.
Oh, that is exactly it. And I think that you just sized it nicely, because it's not about now flicking over to living. Now I'm living the life that I will be proud of when I die. It's that, no, we're just editing. I've heard this and I need to ask a pilot if it's true, but let's just work with it. That like an airplane is off course, actually, like 95% of the time.
I've heard that.
And the adjustments are always just putting it back on track. Yeah, that's our lives. We have good intentions. And it's just, let's just more often than we are now, tune in and say, what would be a thing that I'd love to have in my schedule to look forward to in the next quarter? Wow, I'm going to go visit my friend. Boom, I scheduled it. And then you have this change in who you are that day. You go, I'm the kind of person who made this happen. I'm the kind of person who values her friendships, or I'm the kind of person who books a session with a trainer, or I'm the kind of person who chose the dressing on the side for a change. Whatever, you train yourself that I'm the kind of person who makes choices to live.
I'm the kind of person who makes choices to live. Well, let me ask you my final miracle question. Jodi Wellman, if you had the power to confer upon all humanity one insight or skill that would dramatically improve the lives of the individual and perhaps, since we're all connected, society at large, what would that insight or skill be? And how do you imagine it would impact society as well as society at large?
I would love for that bony, cold hand of the Grim Reaper to touch each one of us just on the back of the neck and send the chill down our spine and remind us, you are totally dying. Therefore, get on with the living.
There is no motivator like fear. And you know what? This is one of those places that you want to exhume all of the zombies, the Grim Reaper, and all of the things to remind us, dude, where's my time?
Right. Snapped it. What are you waiting for?
Yeah. And where's it going? And let's live. Oh my gosh. Jodi Wellman, thank you.
Thank you.
This is Dr. Adam Dorsay thanking you for listening to SuperPsyched. If you know anyone who might like it or who might benefit from listening, share it. And if you like the episode, please hit subscribe